Hey guys, good to see a few of you already in the chat. Let me know if everything works, but I mean, it should. Typically does work. But yeah, good to see you guys. How are you doing? Everyone all right? 141 waiting and only 13 likes. Yeah, it's rough being a content creator. No, it's fine. Like I said before, like I never like videos. I'm not gonna be angry with anyone that doesn't. Work's done. Nice. Good to see. Thank you. My first son's name will be Donald Alt. Fuck off. Dude, no. It's just not happening, my friend. If you want to honor me, don't pick that name. Hey, made it to the live stream for the first time. Nice. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. How did you gain 10% every day? I can talk about like the few trades that I've taken in the last few days, but it's not been every day. It's just been like every other day, which means like not every day. But yeah. Before we start, shout out to FTX, formerly known as Blockfolio. They're the sponsor of the show. They have some really cool stuff going on there. I can only encourage you to check it out. It's like you can trade on your mobile phone. Like swap in and out of coins, trade coins, and you can also kind of keep track of your portfolio and a bunch of other things. The lending stuff is pretty good there too. So if you want to check that out, links are in the description. And yeah, let's get this show rolling because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Yeah, we'll have to get through it. Hit the like and karma will maybe give you some sats. I mean, if that's how it works, I can't confirm or deny that. So yeah, Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin had a pop, and I think like what we should probably do is like talk about ETH first, because what ETH's done, I don't even know like what I talked about on these circles, but what ETH's done is it's broken out, right? It kind of compressed and then just went for the last 3 days, and that has led to ETH USD kind of poking its head above resistance. And the moment it did that significantly, everything just broke out, right? Bitcoin and ETH both did. Now that's something that I honestly hate to see for Bitcoin. I don't want to see a Bitcoin breakout kind of started off by ETH, but it's obviously a good thing for ETH, right? I mean, ETH's mega rallied. So if you're an ETH bull, I mean, you're happy to see that. If you're a Bitcoin bull, I mean, those are the breakouts that tend to be traps the most. I'm not saying this one is one or is not. It's just like, these are the breakouts that are the riskiest to trade, right? When Bitcoin breaks out and everything else breaks out alongside with it, or like outperforms it on the breakout, that's fine. It gets scary when ETH is doing the pulling, right? So basically what happened was Bitcoin was doing this and ETH was pulling, and then it went parabolic, and then Bitcoin started breaking out afterwards, right? That's scary, but doesn't have to mean much. It's something to consider in general for Bitcoin, right? ETH, I think if we're talking about ETH USD, it makes no sense to be bearish on this as long as it's trading above 3.4K. And like I think even 3.2K makes a lot of sense. Like if you want to be bearish this, I mean, be bearish below, but like why the fuck would you want to be bearish here, right? It just broke the biggest resistance. That means like makes a lot of sense for it to actually go up. Now, if it starts losing this again, that would make like a really bad picture, which I think would be like setting the top. But I mean, we don't have to talk about that because that's not happened yet, right? Once it does happen, we'll talk about it, if it does happen at all. But yeah, for me, like ETH, like it's the clear bullish breakout here. No reason to fade this, other than wanting to kind of catch the peak out top, which I mean usually gets you wrecked, right? In these kind of instances. And I've said this a couple times now on the way up on ETH. Like I've been saying, like be bearish below 2.7K if you have to be bearish. and just be cautious into this area, but don't like go net short, whatever. And that's been proven true, and it's the same thing here, right? You want to be like all-time high doesn't mean jack shit. This was the resistance to beat, and as long as we're above that resistance, no real reason to be too concerned. And that's kind of my view on ETH. Now with Bitcoin, like I said, ETH making this rally happen isn't necessarily the best thing, and it's not actually a big one on the daily chart, right? So what I want to see for Bitcoin is actually today to close above 47.7K, like above this level. If we close above there, I don't really see a good reason to be bearish on Bitcoin either. And then you have confluence on Bitcoin and ETH, right? As long as we are kind of like haven't closed yet, there's a chance that we close below 47.7 or 47.8. And if we do that, I think it's just going to be dumping from here on out, right? So that's kind of like my criteria for Bitcoin upside. You want to see the close be above this line today. And then the same is true for Bitcoin. That is true for ETH, right? As in, as long as this is support, there's no reason to be bearish. And then you just expect higher. But like I said, there is this risk of whenever you have Bitcoin being pulled along something, there's this risk that this just basically fizzles out. And that's the one thing that you don't want to see. Like on the low time frames, how that looks like is it starts rolling over. And instead of catching a bid like somewhere in here or somewhere in here, it starts like rolling over completely and then it starts spiking. And then it's really, really bad. Like that's the one thing that you don't want to be seeing. But yeah, depends on the daily close. Like Bitcoin, I'm more cautious still because like I said, it makes a lot of sense to kind of be worried of breakouts that are not based on Bitcoin. And if you're like, okay, why the fuck is he saying this? This is just a nice breakout. The last time I talked about this, and long-term viewers on the channel should kind of recognize me saying this, was actually in here where we had ETH just make stupid moves. And I mean, we can actually overlay this or like do it side to side. Let's go. Like, and that's why I'm a little bit on the cautious side of things on Bitcoin. So here we go. We put in the high for ETH. Oh yeah, that was in here. Exactly. Like here, Bitcoin, like ETH started to ramp up, right? During the high of Bitcoin. And then in here, let's do this on the daily. So we've had this high. Right, we set the high basically when Bitcoin topped, right? And that was like a breakout of ETH that wasn't really going over into the Bitcoin side of things, right? So we made a new high on ETH. The high that was set in here was Bitcoin's top. Like this was Bitcoin top. And this here is here. So it made a higher high, but Bitcoin made a lower high, and then everything dumped together. Like we had this massive washout. And that's the one thing that you don't want to be seeing, right? You don't want to be seeing ETH just run away too quickly, because then the market is kind of at the mercy of the bears, basically, if it gets really bad. So there you go. That's the reason why I keep saying this. I've been saying it for years. Whenever you see the altcoins go completely crazy off like into Bitcoin weakness, it's a bad sign. Now, not saying this has to happen again. Like you see this, like that. This is something I see a lot of people do. They see this and then they're like, okay, this is a fractal. The same thing is going to happen again. And then they can't get that out of their head. And they're like, this is 100% going to happen. And that's not the case, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like we've had this situation before, and back then was a good time to be cautious. So there's a reason why I'm saying like Bitcoin, show me at least something, and that something would be like a daily close above 47.8. And that obviously, like if we start closing below 47.7 or 47.8, then ETH would probably take a beating as well, just based on the fact that if Bitcoin dumps, everything's gonna dump. But yeah, so that's like really, really important to watch. And then the same thing, like if it doesn't break down, I don't see a good reason to be too bearish. So there you go. That's like the long-winded short answer to like where the market's right now. But yeah, ETH moving like this is encouraging for the altcoins because I mean I'm guessing we've all been trading the altcoins. Made some nice gains in the last few days. Now we can talk about that in a bit too. Someone asked about it earlier, but let me check what you guys been saying, and then we'll go over some of those questions and then move on to the altcoins. Long in FTT this morning, yeah. FTT's been mega chatting. Donna ate punks at the top and now the floor is down by 40 ETH. My wife is about to leave me. What do I do? I think you're fucked, not gonna lie. So. Don, do you try to short these setups or is it too hard to execute? So I don't really short anymore. For the people that kind of like haven't been around the last few months, I sold pretty much my long-term holdings in here. I sold a bunch of like my trading stack, like a bunch of everything on the way up, and then I sold my long-term holdings into the 60K area. And given like that I have very little exposure on the market beside my trading stack that I'm trading with, I don't really need to short anymore. I'm just happy with buying good setups and then selling them if it looks not good. So I'm not the guy to ask for shorts anymore. I'm just gonna be sitting here at best being completely out of the market. Like that's as bearish as it gets. Especially so since the German government has been kind of fucky about the tax situation with derivatives. So just not worth it for me. So I'm not shorting this. Like if anything, like I'm selling into like setups that I think are good shorts if I have like positions from lower. Otherwise I just wait to buy the dip. Will there still be a shift to coins like XRP? You still believe a mega pump for XRP? So the thing is with like these setups, right? Like XRP, I think if something good comes out of the SEC hearings and like the entire case, basically, I think it's gonna mega moon, regardless where the market is. And I think like actually like if that case ends well, I think it's gonna be bullish for all of crypto, at least in the short term. That's gonna pump everything. But obviously XRP the most, right? So that's like a fundamental kind of factor that like you can't really time. Like the chart's just gonna look like it does until like either good news comes or bad news comes with regards to XRP. I've been trading this around a lot. Still have a bunch, but yeah. So like what I did yesterday, for example, it mega pumped into like the hearing that you could take part. Like there was a hearing, whatever. I didn't even listen into it, but it mega pumped and I bought like the retrace of it, being like, okay, I think this is gonna go up, and started buying like basically into 120 and then bought all the way down and basically sold all of those ads. Like I bought heavily at the lows and it just sold higher. Like because I thought this would probably have like some upside potential right after, didn't. So sold all of those ads, still just sitting out at the position that I've just been holding, right? That's XRP. With regards to Link, I've actually like enjoyed this a shitload. For the people that read the newsletter, I don't think we talked about this last stream, but for the people that read the newsletter, like that was pretty well timed. Like I bought Link pretty low, and then it just started outperforming. And I think a good part of that is because of the strength of ETH, right? Like look at this, like the last 2 days been really well, like really good for Link, and then you look at ETH and it's pretty much the same story, right? So I mean I think yeah, ETH's up like 18% from bottom to top and Link is up like 20. Like it's the exact same thing. I just bought Link instead of ETH. So yeah, that worked pretty well. That setup's also like, if you're wondering like why I took it, and I briefly explained it in the newsletter, it was basically just a bullish retest of the support on the USD pair, and then on the Bitcoin pair, bullish retest of support as well. And it just was like, just fuck it, probably gonna go up. But yeah, that's like the Link setup. I still think there's a good chance that Link goes higher. I sold a shitload of Link though, and I didn't get the high. I sold into 28, like in the middle of the 28. And the reason is that I want to see the Bitcoin close before like getting back into the markets too much. So that's kind of what I did. I don't want to be, when I see this, right? When I see this spike up into resistance off of an ETH pump, I usually de-risk. And yeah, I de-risked some before. Link didn't really move much during this Bitcoin pump. It just moved before it. So yeah, there's that. But I don't like, I encourage people to be careful whenever you have something like this that is not based on Bitcoin. But then again, like if it starts closing, and this is quite far away, if it starts closing above this, I mean, just fucking moon it. There's no real good resistance left beyond the one that we're just trading above. But with daily resistances, like what often happens, and I've talked about this like a week ago, you have daily resistance, you poke above it, and like on the lower time frames, you start closing above it, and you don't want to be too excited off of that before the daily close happens, because if the daily close happens, it's actually like a really good short setup, and then everyone above it is trapped. So that's like why I'm saying wait for the daily close, see how it goes, and if that's bullish, I mean, that doesn't guarantee that prices are going to go up, but it's much, much more likely that they will, and the risk is much, much lower. So that's kind of my stance on that front. Why is Litecoin not moving? I mean, I've traded Litecoin, but the reason why like Litecoin isn't moving is that like, one, Litecoin isn't really too interesting to people, and two, like it's just an old coin. Like there's very little excitement, very little fundamental reasons to like get super, super hyped. The people that have a position, like the people that want a position have a position. The people that don't want a position, I mean, obviously don't, and there's no reason for them to get in. And right now it's a bearish retest, right? Doesn't have to mean much. It's just illiquid sideways movement, whatever. But like for me, it's not interesting on the Bitcoin pair. And if it's not interesting on the Bitcoin pair, I'm not gonna even look at it on the USD pair. So, Chainlink developers done selling? Probably never, man. They've been selling so much. It's just like for me, the setup was just good enough. And like, it doesn't really matter if they're selling or not, if the setup is really good, because they're selling anyway. It's the same with XRP, right? Like you're probably gonna get dumped on by the XRP people if you're holding XRP too long. It's just, if the setup is good, that's fine for a short while. Just don't get stuck with the bags, right? It's the one thing. Like if I'm starting to smell that I am the bag holder, I just get the fuck out, and then I have no problem buying back higher. Look at the strength of ETH versus Bitcoin on the 5-minute candles right now. Let's see what, yeah. Look at that. That's ETH BTC, and that's Bitcoin. Like that's the one thing that you don't want to be seeing. You want to be seeing Bitcoin strength and ETH weakness into like the Bitcoin breakout. You're not seeing that. There's a good chance the entire Bitcoin move is going to retrace. That doesn't have to mean that the entire ETH move is going to retrace though. So it just makes sense to be like on the ETH team right now, given that's a confirmed breakout, right? And I mean, it's not yet confirmed. It's just very, very unlikely to kind of shit the bed enough to be mega bearish, right? Like, let's say this entire candle turned red, then it's obviously bearish, right? And you're obviously going to get, like, there's a very, very high chance that you're going to get lower prices. The thing is, like, if you're expecting this, like, it's too far away from that to make any sense to expect. Now, it could happen, but, like, yeah, then you just kind of act on it when it happens. When you're trying to predict this kind of stuff, like when you have a resistance and then you start trading like a few percent above it, like that's one thing. But if you're like chatting through resistance with like a 10% candle and you're expecting this entire candle to turn red, that's too much in my opinion. So yeah, for like this is basically a confirmed breakout. Bitcoin, like that's basically just broken out into resistance, and if it gets rejected by that, yeah, tough titties. So yeah, I'll be watching this. It's gonna be a lot of fun because I think this is gonna set the tone where this market goes. If Bitcoin can maintain, we're gonna go to 60, 70K, I think. If it can't maintain, I think we're gonna go to 40 and lower. So like this is the one thing to watch, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. And a lot of people are going to try to slam it one way or the other into the daily close. Because I mean a bunch of funds know this kind of shit. And know that people are watching it. Like a bunch of people are going to try to not make this Eiffel Tower like go back down again. But if it does anyway, then holy shit, are we in for a wild ride? But yeah, like I said, makes more sense to kind of just give it some time. Even if you want to be shorting, right? If you want to be shorting, like why not give it this time, right? Like the difference between now and like 47.7 is just like 2%, and you're targeting a much, much wider move. So like why not let the bulls have it until then? Or like maybe you're even invalidated with the daily close. Wouldn't be surprising either. It's just my gut feeling's telling me to be fucking careful. ETH breakout while Bitcoin's weak. Danger signs in my eyes. What's the reasoning behind using UTC time zone? It's just the one that everyone watches. And then also like when you use UTC on TradingView down here, right? Down here, it's just going to show you when the daily is going to close. So let's say you're from America or something and you always have problems kind of figuring out when the daily is going to close or whatever. Just put this into UTC time. And then there you go. Like 4 hours, 30 minutes, UTC time, checks out, right? So there you go. And in general, when people talk about, like when I say, okay, look at this candle that happened at like 19 o'clock or whatever, then everyone is going to understand that I talk about like the UTC candle. It'd be fucking weird if I like had it to my local time and then talked about like the whatever candle, like the candle that happened at 8 o'clock and it's my own time. No one knows what's going on. So it just makes sense. Okay. Do you see ETH break 4K in the next week? I have no idea. I just know that I want to be bullish ETH as long as it maintains above 3.4K. Where it's going to go, I have no idea. But like, I mean, new all-time highs wouldn't be surprising as long. Like as long as it's above this, you're expecting higher. No matter how high it goes, like let's say it goes to 6K, where like, do you expect higher still? Yes. Until it loses this, or until it starts forming a top structure. And that wouldn't be just by going straight up and then completely nuking down. It's usually not how it happens. Usually you get like it starts rounding out, or Bitcoin starts looking really, really bad, or whatever. Like look at back in time, like top patterns. Usually it shows you massive sign of weakness, and then it bounces back up, and then it gives you the complacency bounce to sell into. That's usual for ETH. And I mean, like I said, as long as it's above 3.4K, it just makes sense to expect higher. Can Bitcoin dump an XRP moon without good news? No, I don't think so. Like you're at the mercy of Bitcoin on like all of the altcoins. It's just how it is. Like if Bitcoin dumps, you're gonna get shit on like really fucking hard in altcoins. So the reason, like I bought a bunch of altcoins yesterday and the day before, And people were like really freaking out. And I mean, I was a little bit worried too when we started trading down here, right? It just looked really weak. And the reason why people panic sold these altcoins was because, I mean, everyone knows that if this would have rolled over, the altcoins would have taken the double hit, right? Once from Bitcoin going down, so the USD value decreases, and then once from their pairs going down, the Bitcoin pairs. But the reason why I thought this wasn't gonna break down, and this is something we can talk about too, is because of the altcoin strength I saw. So I saw ETH being quite strong back at those lows, right? Just completely refused to dump. And even more so, and this is one that I can, like the one that I traded, I saw Link. Like I was looking at this chart, and this, you could do the same thing with ETH, right? But I was looking at Link and I was seeing like every time Bitcoin dumped, Link went down with it. But like it was the kind of direction where it wanted to go, like the direction of least resistance was up, right? And given Bitcoin wasn't really like anywhere where it like could take liquidity or anything, in the sense that like, let's say this rolls over here, I would expect it to completely roll over. And then we had like a bunch of bids on the altcoins in general, especially like I said, ETH and Link and all of the ETH-based stuff. So I was like, okay, even if Bitcoin wants to generally head down, I think someone's gonna bid it back, like gonna keep it up so that the altcoins can pop, and then maybe it starts dumping. And I mean, that's what happened, right? We popped up. And I mean, now I could see it start dumping. It just yesterday, it was pretty unlikely. So yeah, there's a bunch of other reasons that I don't want to get into. But like yesterday, like a bunch of people freaked out into the lows, and the altcoins were looking really good. So got some nice trades there. And like I said, I talked about Link before. Link's just been completely nuts. And you can still see strength there, right? Like, look at this. This is the 5-minute chart. The only reason why I use the 5-minute chart is to kind of show the strength the best. And I can say this even though I sold a bunch, because let's actually not compare it. Let's do it like this. I like it better. So this is Link, right? And this is Bitcoin. We go on the lower time frames. And what you can see is, and this is something that always happens, and this is something you can watch out for with these. We can go back in time a little bit. What happened, like these usually, look at this. This is like the top on Link Bitcoin. It's also the top on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin dumps, makes a lower low, like it kept on making lower lows, right? And then you can kind of see what happened with Link. Right, you see the strength creep in. Bitcoin's just kind of not doing much, and then like what happened next is just kind of like this shows strength. You can just kind of see this when you compare it, and when you're watching it live, you can kind of see it very well. Like whenever you see something like this, like it's very correlated, but you can kind of clearly see that one is trying to outperform the other. When the market turns, that is always gonna be outperforming, and that's what it did. But it's kind of hilarious that in the end, like look at this. The top for Chainlink was basically where Bitcoin's pump started. So yeah, but that's the kind of like stuff that I watch on the side when I'm bored and when I'm like figuring out, okay, do I want to keep a position that's lower time frame or do I not? And yeah, there you go. Sol was crazy strong, obvious. Yeah, it's this the kind of stuff that how you can kind of gauge strength, right? You just kind of look at like the lower time frames. Like you get the setup from the higher time frames, and you kind of figure out, okay, is there strength or not on the lower time frames? Is there actually someone in those books trying to get in? And if yes, that's nice. Would you bid daily resistance because of intraday structure? I mean, if I really wanted to get in, yeah. I think like if you're bidding, like if you really want to get in, you bid 47.9. The problem is if it rolls over, you're completely fucked instantly. So I usually don't do it. But like if you really, really wanted to, I mean, it's not the worst. Like there's a chance it bounces from there. I'd much rather, honestly, like we can look on the lower time frames. And this is like the only time where like lower time frames actually matter a lot in these kind of pump scenarios. So that's why I have it open. But like this roughly is daily. This is the daily resistance that we want to close above, right? And you could say, okay, this is daily resistance. So I want to bid it as support for it to flip, kind of. And that's fine to do. The problem is, look at how much of this move this would retrace. Would it really be realistic if it did that to not at least go below the origin of the move to fuck everyone over that has the stop loss there? The answer is pretty obvious to me. Holy fuck, this looks so garbage. I wonder how this is gonna play out. But like, if I had to make a guess, like if you wanted a bounce, if this plays out bullishly and you want to see a bounce, right? You want to see it in this area. You can kind of see on the lower time frames how this wicked one way and the other way and whatever. Like this is what needs to hold. This down here, if it does like get tested, I could see it just completely roll over. So exactly where we are right now, roughly, is like if you want to see it play out bullishly, that's what you want to see hold. And yeah, like I said, I'm just worried about like ETH strength into like Bitcoin dragging up, blah blah. Said it often enough. That's why I'm not like on the hunt for bids. I want to see at least one close that is strong. One close is all I'm asking for. Erase that line quickly. I mean, we'll see. We'll see this live. It's gonna be fun. We'll see how this plays out. Like, if you really want to be bullish, I guess you can start bidding 47.4, like kind of, or like somewhere in this area. Like, the thing is, the moment you start going below here, a bunch of people get liquidated, right? So that is, and once they get liquidated, prices just push below where they even want to sell, right? It's just how liquidations work. So if you really wanted to get like a cheap shot bid in, I mean, you could do this and then hope that what it does is like it nukes in here and then does like a mean reversion. But the problem is then you still struggle with this. But that's like, if I trade the low time frames, if I'm bored enough, that's kind of how I look at these things. Like, where are the stops? Where can I get in cheaper than like I should be getting in? And where would I be selling? And obviously the daily resistance. Like if I got in here, would sell the daily resistance. And I'm not saying it's gonna do this. I'm just saying like if I had to make a trade, like this is the only one on the lower time frames I could be making. Besides bidding somewhere in here where it is right now and hoping it goes up, but that's not how I trade. Like I try to get in when it's cheap. Bitcoin will pump again after stock market closes. Looking like this, I very much doubt it. But like I said, if it pumps from somewhere and closes above the daily moon, this is probably the tiniest part Bitcoin ever did. It's like the reason why it's so bad. And I mean, I said this at the beginning of the stream. I'm very happy this is happening live because I'm pretty sure like the beginning of the stream was pretty much at the high still. It's because of ETH strength, right? You don't want to be seeing ETH break through resistance while Bitcoin heads. Like, that's ETH. And what Bitcoin did, like this pushed Bitcoin into resistance. And it was basically, all of this was basically people FOMO longing the correlation between Bitcoin and ETH. So they could be right, but it's like those are a bunch of vulnerable people, probably long on leverage. And when I see that, like that's the best catalyst to kind of move lower. That's why I'm a little bit worried. Don't stop selling. I'm sitting here on the second tab just smashing sell. Like, nope, that's not what I'm doing. But yeah, this is fun to watch. And like I said, like what you want, like you don't want to be going down here. Like if it bounces from here and then just heads back up, it's much more bullish than if it goes down here and then bounces. But like I wouldn't bet on any of these bounces. Fucking hell, it looks completely garbage. Like if I had to make a bet on a bounce, it'd probably be ETH. And by the way, ETH BTC is still green on this 5-minute candle. Yeah, it's even more worrying. Like look at this. The flipping narrative is just gonna fuck Bitcoin over again, and that could fuck over everything. But maybe at some point, right, the flipping narrative gets so much steam that Bitcoin actually fucks off and ETH actually goes up. I just don't think we're there yet. I don't think the market's ready yet. 1 minute chart is more entertaining. Jesus, fuck you, fucking degens. This is already degen for me, but okay, we can look. Oh, fucking hell. This is so ugly. Have you, like, what the fuck? This is so ugly. And I'm gonna say this, I can already see it. I'm gonna say it and then it's gonna bounce like $500 in a second. But fucking hell, look at this. How beautiful of a roundout is this? Short's about to get squeezed. I mean, it looks like a long squeeze is gonna happen, but we shall see, we shall see. Enough about that. Like on the 1 hour, this is completely fine still, right? It's just the reason why it looks so shit and the reason why I'm looking at the lower time frames is all of like the Bitcoin ETH relationship. Hope that helps. So what conditions would you need to see to be more confident in the flippening? I mean, the thing is, if you want to see the flippening, right, what you're going to have to expect, the moment ETH approaches Bitcoin's price the first time, the entire market is going to take a huge fucking shit, right? Everyone is going to be like, what the fuck? Like, no one knows how to trade these conditions. And I know this because, I mean, we've had XRP flip it briefly, and then the entire market took a huge shit, and everyone was kind of confused. And it's the same with Bitcoin Cash. If you remember Bitcoin Cash, the fork, there was a time, like it started dumping, everyone was making fun of it, but then it like mega spiked and people were like, holy shit, if this is actually flipping Bitcoin, what the fuck do we do, right? And it kept on trucking up. And then the entire market as a whole just took a huge shit. And that's usually how these things work. So what I would need to see, like even if ETH is gonna flip Bitcoin, what I think is gonna happen, right? If it does happen, if that happens, is like you're gonna see ETH move on up. Bitcoin is gonna struggle, right? This is Bitcoin. This is ETH. And then Bitcoin is just gonna capitulate, like this is gonna go up, Bitcoin is gonna capitulate, ETH is gonna capitulate too, and then ETH is just gonna show more strength while Bitcoin does like this, and then I could see the flipping happen, and I think that would result in Bitcoin going down again, and then you would see ETH go down again. But then like once you have it seriously flipped is when like this fuckery stops happening. So even if you expect the flipping, which like I'm not expecting at all, but even if you expect it, there's gonna be like a good trade off of like the panic that's gonna hit the moment it approaches. So if you expect it, I mean, take advantage of that once we get there. Wait, XRP flipped Bitcoin? Yeah, it did. Like on like fully diluted cap, like pretty considerably actually. That was hilarious. I was actually trading with like XRP back then, made a shitload of money on it. And yeah, it's just like we've gone through this before. We've gone through like these flipping scenarios with Bitcoin Cash. We've gone through it with like I said, XRP. It's happened a couple of times, so people are like, okay, holy shit. And every time it ends in pain. And then like if it really happens, it's gonna end in pain. But then ETH or whatever is gonna flip Bitcoin is gonna recover really strongly, and then you know, okay, it's actually for real. Usually, whenever it approaches, just shits the bed. If you guys saw the Bitcoin Cash flipping, that was the most epic thing I've ever seen. That was fucking nuts. I remember, we can talk about this real quick because it's somewhat relevant. I don't want to brag about stuff that's not relevant or like talk about it too much, but We don't actually need this. We can just remove all of this. So Bitcoin Cash, right? It actually started out like Roger Ver just pumped it from the get-go, and it got like 0 to 0.25%. Like that's 25% of Bitcoin's market cap, basically here, right? And then that was Roger Ver just kind of trying to pump it, and that ended up in a bleed out, right? And I was like, okay, like he's tried this once. There's gonna be like, I think there's a good chance that he's gonna try it again. So I was just like, I bought a little bit. And that wasn't necessarily me actually like speculating on it just mega mooning or whatever. It was just me being like, holy shit, like what if, because I didn't, back then it wasn't really easy to tell which Bitcoin would win, right? So I was like, what if? I just want to be hedged. So I bought a bunch more of Bitcoin than I had, like a bunch more Bitcoin Cash than I had Bitcoin, because I was like, okay, worst comes to worst, it's just gonna go to zero, but I'm at least hedged, right? And it started walking up, and I was just like, okay, holy shit, it's just a good speculative play. And I went all in Bitcoin Cash for like a short amount of time, and it just mega mooned. I like foam, like I got really panicked, sold like into 0.15 or something. Went to bed being like mega happy, and I still had a bunch, like I said, my hedge. And then the next day I woke up and it was at 0.2. And I was like, holy shit, this is the best trade of my life. I sold everything into this, and then this shit happened. And literally people were thinking Bitcoin was done for and Bitcoin Cash was going to be the thing. And I was just sitting there being like panicked with everyone else, because I was like, holy fuck, what if I just sold my insurance? Because I sold everything and I just mega dumped. And that was fun to trade, but I was terrified. Because at the end of the day, right, if Bitcoin Cash would have won, it would have just turned into Bitcoin, and then my Bitcoin would have turned into this, right, instead. So it got like pretty damn close. Was damn scary and damn crazy too. And I think that's going to be the same story for ETH if ETH ever approaches, right? Like the market, you get the point, right? You can hedge against like the flipping, whatever. You always want to keep some, at least for me. Like I could have, and a bunch of my friends, what they did is they kind of did the same thing I did, but then they were like, holy shit, what if this is actually gonna flip mid? And then they started hedging their Bitcoin into this wick with Bitcoin Cash. And that's not a situation you want to be put in. I was just like, I've made a bunch of money. Even if it flips, I'm gonna have some time, not gonna buy into this candle, but yeah, got lucky on that. And like if you get something crazy like that again on ETH, gonna be fun to trade, but terrifying for everyone involved. XRP never flipped Bitcoin. What the fuck are you talking about? I said fully diluted cap, and that flipped it. 100%. Yeah, Bitcoin's still struggling. So yeah, that was good times with Bitcoin Cash. I think like you can go back in history and kind of see like previous flipping contenders and like how price action moves. And it's going to help you a bit understand like how it would look like with ETH flipping. And the one thing that is consistent across all of those is that it's violent, both take a shit, and then at some point it just kind of turns out, okay, it's going to flip or not. So yeah. What's your opinion on 50k resistance not really doing a lot of resisting, which would be considered bullish? I mean, it's done a shitload of resisting. What are you talking about? Like, look at how much resisting it's done. 1, 2, 3, arguably 4, 5 tests. That's been like the resistance to beat. Full stop. Dude. Like, we're so close to daily resistance being daily resistance again. It's actually terrifying on Bitcoin. Aren't we in an altcoin bull? Have a look on total and ETH BTC. Yes, somewhat. ETH has just kind of like front ran everything. Like ETH's just been completely mental. Yeah, I mean ETH's been ever since the bottom basically. ETH's been outperforming, which is nuts. Bitcoin has been like putting the run of the century in, and then ETH's just outperformed everything. It's just a question of, do you really want to position for the flipping after like ETH's already up like 5x against Bitcoin that is up like a million x? I mean, you could. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying like it's already up a lot. But like I said, I think like the best guide to ETH is still gonna be this support down here. It holds with fucking mega mooning. I'll be honest, I don't feel great about selling my ETH at 1860. I mean, we could talk about like mistakes on ETH. Like I had like 5x ish my net worth in ETH down here at $100 or something of that sort. Pretty tight risk reward setup. Was leveraged long to like way like mega dumb amount because I was just like, okay, this is 100% the bottom, and then it turned out to be the bottom. It rallied, and I sold on the way up somewhere into like the 200 or 300s. I don't quite remember right. I was like, if this is ever retesting that again, just gonna do the same trade again. And then it retested it, and I was like, just gonna focus on Bitcoin, and then yeah. But shit happens, right? It's just is how it is. And I mean, Bitcoin went up quite a bit too. It's just like sometimes you do mistakes like that, and yeah, sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes it is just how this works, right? But yeah, it's hilarious if I think about like holding this position. If I held it, holy fuck! Like I was one of the biggest positions I've ever put on in general, and that was at $100 ETH. You leverage 5x your net worth. I mean, roughly, if I remember correctly, I was terrified. that I remember. Like I was like, this is so dumb. Like everyone's so bearish. I'm just gonna like get in, and then I bought and I kept buying, and it never stopped. And it just, and I mean, there was no heat that I took on that trade, right? I was like, okay, if we start losing, if we start closing below this wick down here, I'm gonna get out. And it was like legitimately no heat. Like it went immediately up. I bought basically, it went up off of my buys, and then yeah, no heat on that trade. Good times, good times. Would have been the same in here basically. Just how these markets sometimes go. But yeah, holy fuck. It's kind of crazy thinking back. Like ETH at $100, now it's like 37 times as much. Fucking hell, that's nuts. Nuts. But yeah, that's kind of like the flipping stuff we talked about. The XRP setup, still the same. If Bitcoin shits the bed, this is gonna shit the bed too. And I'm just gonna buy the dip heavily because I think there's like, it's the brain that, like if there's anything like a brain that trade in crypto, I think this is the one. It's gonna dump like everything else if Bitcoin dumps. So like, you gotta be prepared for that always. And I mean, if Bitcoin goes to 70, 80, 90K, XRP BTC is gonna go down as well until they get like the positive news that I'm expecting. So that's like the XRP setup. Like I talked about earlier, the link setup is pretty simple. Hit support, bounced. I mean, I still have some, but I sold a shitload into like 28. Because the problem right now is like usually I wouldn't have, and I wouldn't have sold any XRP either. I would have just kind of made sure I was hedging Bitcoin at resistance. And then just kept my altcoins. But given I can't leverage trade right now, it's pretty difficult. Like that's, if you have been following kind of my trades, the reason why I've been like taking all of these 10% trades is because I can't hedge. Usually I would just keep the trades open, and that's what I've always done. Like I keep the trades open and I just go short a little bit of Bitcoin or do like any other hedges I think are gonna do well. Nowadays I can't do that anymore, so I'm just forced to trade my actual position around, and I've been fucking hating it. But yeah, it is what it is. You gotta deal with it. Is ETH dominance strengthening the complacency thesis? 100% yes. In general, like altcoins, there's the one thing that you don't want to be seeing with Bitcoin being at this resistance is altcoin strength. Like we can talk about this briefly, but like if you guys remember, give me a second? I'll open something on a different window. Okay, so if you guys remember this, right? When we crashed, this was at 30K, right? Like 38 or whatever. Like we crashed, and then I was like, I'm expecting these candles, right? I mean, these green candles are painted in and the red one is too, right? And the reason why I expected this was, one, because like everyone got too bearish, and two, because I thought the market would need some time to put in like a complacency bounce. Now, obviously this is way too short, like in hindsight. It's just like I gave it 3 weeks and it took like 3 months or like 2 months. But I was always looking for this like 49K area for the complacency bounce. And in this thesis was basically that altcoins would outperform on the bounce like they did in 18. That's why like I was looking at this and I was like, okay, it has to bounce. It has to kind of get people back into the altcoins. Now that kind of got ruined by the NFT stuff. Most people just got into the NFT, so we didn't see like the biggest movements on the altcoins. But that was kind of my thesis, like that we would bounce from support into resistance. Altcoins would do well. Now the altcoins have done well, but the NFTs have even like done much better. And now we're exactly at that level that I talked about back then. This is the wrong one. This one. So we're exactly at that level. Doesn't mean this has to play out, right? And this is something that I keep saying and people just keep on forgetting. They're like, holy shit, you said this and this is going to happen, and it's not like it didn't happen. Whenever I talk about this stuff, it's always eventualities, right? But like that was my area to kind of look for the complacency bounce. And I wanted to see the altcoins go nuts. And ETH has gone nuts. And the NFT space has gone nuts too. So like my thesis so far is correct. It's just a question of, is it going to get invalidated or not? And this is kind of the place where it's going to like, where it's as close as it can get to invalidation. I've been talking about this kind of like complacency bounce thesis before, and I've been saying like, if you want to like have it confirmed, just be bearish below 40K. And I still think that's true. If you like, you don't have to subscribe to like what I just lined out. Whenever I say like, I mean, the reason why I think this is gonna play out like it's gonna play out, or like it has been basically like me fractaling out 2018 into how I would think it would look like in 2021. Like that's just all I did. Like I basically said, okay, we set the top. I think it's gonna play out similar to this. That's why like I'm targeting there and there and there. And that's kind of where it comes from, right? And I think it's going to be confirmed below 40K. And it's going to be invalidated if we cross above 50K meaningfully. So you can wait for either of those things if you want to in this area. Or you can trade the altcoins, or you can do whatever the fuck you want, right? It's just like how I'm going to trade it, right? We'll move below 40K. I'm going to say, okay, I think the complacency bounce, like this was the complacency bounce. We had the NFT bubble. We have the ETH going crazy, the altcoins going nuts basically, and then I'm gonna expect lower. Until then, I mean, do whatever the fuck you wanna do, right? And above 50K, I'm gonna think like everyone that thinks like me is gonna get fucked above there, because what happens is like people are really slow at changing bias, and then they're gonna hold on to it and then hope that like 55 is gonna be it, and then 60K is gonna be it before it heads lower, and then it doesn't, and people get fucked. So yeah, that's my stance on it. Did altcoins make all-time high in 17 complacency bounds? Yes, they did. That's where all the all-time highs are from, after Bitcoin set the high. I mean, we can... people are going to make fun of me for saying this again, but we can make the comparison if you guys want to. It's always fun when I'm just like, this is how it worked out in 17, and then people get really, really angry just because I mentioned the date or whatever, but we can still do it. Let's actually open up a clean chart where I don't have to delete any lines. Okay. So daily, right? So you look at this and you're like, okay, the high for ETH should be at the high for Bitcoin, right? But, and this is hilariously accurate to like what we drew earlier too. It was afterwards. Like Bitcoin had already topped and then ETH made an all-time high way down here. And then you look at like, what do you guys want to look at? Like there's a billion coins. Neo USD, I think Neo USD was one that peaked early, and you look at it. Yeah. That was during, like, look at this. This is where the altcoins made the all-time high. And now if you can look at XRP, look at this. None of these things made their all-time high before Bitcoin did. It's just all afterwards. So like that's usually how these things play out. And the reason for it is simple. Like people see Bitcoin going up crazily and they're like, holy shit, I want to capture some of that. I missed it or whatever. Where can I get that kind of move? And then they look for the altcoins and then get into the altcoins while Bitcoin is actually already slowing down. It's basically people moving out on the risk curve because they're kind of FOMOing into stuff. And yeah, there you go. Like I could still see, even if this is a complacency bounce for Bitcoin, I could still see ETH break 4K. So yeah, I mean, this is always interesting to watch. I think too few people do it, and the people that have been kind of saying, okay, the complacency bounce is completely garbage. I mean, that's fine by me, right? It's just like, it's hilarious that they're always saying it into resistance, because I've seen a bunch of people tweet on Twitter joking about it exactly at the high of the day. And I mean, I'm down with kind of saying that it's not going to happen if we break to the upside. And I'm not even arguing that it 100% has to happen, because I think like there's an easy spot for you to say where it's going to come in or not. Or like if it's already has happened, and that's going to be 40K. Okay, but that's beating a dead horse. Maybe we're in the super cycle, and if we're in the super cycle, I mean, it's just gonna Mega Moon. I'm down with it. Like I'm not gonna complain. Like if the market goes completely crazy again, Bitcoin just rallies to 70, 80, 90K. What I think is gonna happen is the altcoin pairs on the altcoins are gonna dump, and then you're gonna get like good buys on those. So like I wouldn't even hate it. Even if I have like not as much Bitcoin as I used to have in here, still wouldn't hate it. $300K by end of year. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sounds unrealistic, but I mean, the world's crazy. Who the fuck knows? But 300K would be nuts. I don't think that's gonna happen. Yeah. This is such an important point. You don't like you guys don't understand how important this is. It's gonna be lit to see this play out one way or the other. If this breaks to the upside, fucking hell, it's gonna get nuts. I'm like very, very sure. And if it breaks to the downside, I'm reasonably sure that it's gonna go nuts as well. The risk reward is 100% on the bear side of things. But I mean, being optimistic has been the play in the last few months. So yeah. It's like dynamite waiting to explode. Yep, I think so too. Like I think this is like legitimately gonna end in fireworks one way or the other. And if it's to the upside, GG, that's gonna be nuts. And if it's to the downside, I mean, that's gonna be nuts too, and there's gonna be good prices to buy it. What if this closes indecisively around 48k? Then I'd be just wait for the next one. Like if this daily closes like this, what you could do is try to bid down the support, but like it wouldn't. This would be too little for me. Like fuck that. I want to see it like at the minimum close here, if not just come back all the way, because then it would look really bullish, right? Like let's say this daily closed at 48.9, that would look really bullish, and I would expect like a small candle the next day, and then something like this, right? That's what you usually get if it closes bullishly after a day like today. But if it closes bearishly, the opposite happens, right? Then I would expect it, like let's say this closes below support, I would expect a pretty significant down move on the next day, and then a move below support. So like, you kind of get why I'm like saying, okay, this is super important, because if I'm expecting either this or the mega move to the upside, then yeah, it's a bunch of money to be made on both sides, no matter where this breaks. Do you think FTT is front running Bitcoin? Somewhat. Usually it just does well when Bitcoin does well, but I mean, we can look at FTT. Holy shit. It's nuts. We talked about this last week, I think, and I was like, this is support. We talked 100%, we talked about FTT and how like, if Bitcoin is going to do well, FTT is going to do well too. 100%. And yeah, it broke the all-time high on the Bitcoin pair. And I mean, it's up on the USD pair too. Oh yeah, we talked about this too. We talked about both pairs. And I was like, okay, it's a support on both pairs. Should have gotten Cred to buy it again. Cred always plays FTT really well. Don, would you sell FTT here in price discovery? Nah. Like what you do is you hold on to it. Like let's say you have FTT a long-term back and you bullish FTT from down here. What you do, right, is now your invalidation is down here. Like let's say this rounds out and crashes down. And you get the fuck out if it loses 50 or whatever. And yeah, I know that's a tough loss, but it's better than having to FOMO back in at 100 or 150, right? You don't want to be the guy that has to do that. So my opinion, like if you have like a good entry on this thing, makes a lot of sense to just kind of be cautious, like not be cautious, just keep holding it until it invalidates you. And then let's say this goes to 100 and gonna like pulls back or whatever, sets a new consolidation here, goes up, then you can just put your invalidation higher up if you want to. Like that's how I trade these things anyway. So you don't need to, I mean, depending on what your target and what your idea for the trade is. Obviously, if you've been saying, okay, I'm gonna sell FTT at $50 from the get-go, and then now it's at $50, you should probably take some off, right? But it's like technically speaking, there's no real reason to be too concerned on that front. Okay, we have a watch party done, maybe with Cred on Spaces, please. What do you mean watch party? Damn, did I miss the Mega Moon talk? Gotta rewatch. I mean, Eve, we don't need to talk about the Mega Moon because it's happened. Shit just went wild. The Mega Moon part is it broke above resistance. There's no resistance left for Eve. That's the Mega Moon talk. Which means you expect all-time highs unless we start losing support. And I think that's pretty moon talky to me. Just gonna have to hope that Bitcoin plays ball. And like I said, Bitcoin's been a little bitch lately. How do you think crypto would look if Bitcoin wasn't number one? Would you expect more decorrelation to occur across the board? I mean, I'd be pretty bearish Bitcoin if that, not Bitcoin, like crypto, and obviously Bitcoin as well if that happened for long term. Like, in my opinion, you need like a steady kind of coin that just works and is uncomplicated and has like history behind it. At least nowadays still, while the space is still in its infancy. But yeah, if you have like Bitcoin not at number one, I think what's gonna happen is you every like couple of years you're gonna have like an upset. And I think like in general what would happen is like you have like, let's say ETH flips Bitcoin, right? And then stays there for a while. I think Bitcoin would start just drifting off because I mean, if it's not the best at what it does, being a store of value, because like ETH's deflationary or whatever and does it better, I think Bitcoin's just gonna fuck off, right? And like I said, I don't think this is likely, right? I think Bitcoin is gonna stay number one. But let's do the thought experiment, right? I think Bitcoin would fuck off, go through the ranks, would get flipped by a bunch of other things too. And then I think you're gonna get like a new kind of protocol hyped, and that's gonna flip ETH. Maybe just for a short amount of time, but yeah. And then the next one is gonna flip it, like flip both or whatever. Maybe ETH goes back on top, but I think it would be a constant back and forth between like stuff. I honestly don't want to see it. I would much rather see Bitcoin at the top. But I mean, if that were the case, you would constantly have like stuff just trying to push past each other, and it would constantly happen too, I think. And then people would start, like at least the longer term guys would start getting pretty pissed off. At least I would. So I can only speak from like how I would deal with it, and I'd probably be like, okay, fuck this. It's not the space to invest, it's just the space to trade. So I want to see Bitcoin number one, just because it makes investing in the space really easy. But who the fuck knows? Maybe it changes in the future, and it's not my area of expertise. Like my area of expertise is drawing silly lines on the chart and then seeing the price bounce from those silly lines or not, and then take advantage of that. I want an app for crypto practice without real money. Any suggestions? Yeah, just go to the links in the description, download Blockfolio. They have like a portfolio tracking service, and then you just look at like, okay, I would like to buy this and this and this. You type it in as if you already own it, and then you just see how you do. That's like the best way to do it, in my opinion. Like you just get a portfolio tracker, you kind of put stuff in that you don't have that you would like to own, and then you just kind of go from there. Just kind of, you can trade that around, you can see how your portfolio would be doing if you really bought it, that kind of stuff. And if you're talking about like leverage trading, I think like most people should keep their hands off of it. But there are like, if you just Google whatever platform you're trading on, testnet, you can trade on those, and you don't have to use real money either. But I would encourage you to stay away from that. The easiest way is just a portfolio tracker. Short NFTs, CryptoPath was trying to get rid of all of his today. NFT top percent. I wouldn't actually be surprised if it like took a dump now. He's been really good with it. And someone in the chat said he just wanted to sell 2 out of a massive collection. He has prices for almost everything on his stuff, as far as I've seen. I don't know if that's always been the case, but I mean, I think like if he wants to sell those 2, he probably wants to sell more, but you would have to talk with him about it. So yeah, there you go. I think that's more than enough from me. I'll keep watching this. I want to see if it breaks to the downside. The longer this goes sideways here, the better for Bitcoin. Like the worst thing is just a straight up move back down again. Like the longer this goes sideways here, the safer it gets. So I'll be watching this, seeing how it goes. If we start losing like 47.4, that's gonna be an interesting kind of environment to trade, because at that point I think we're just gonna capitulate to the downside. And if we start getting back into like 48.7, 48.8 into like the highs here, I think the daily close is gonna be excellent. So it's gonna be like, this is gonna be interesting and important to watch. Easiest way, if you don't want to sit in front of the computer all day, just come back on the daily close and then make up your mind. But yeah, that's it from me for today. Appreciate you guys coming by. Appreciate the sponsor of the show, which is FTX, formerly known as Blockfolio. I've given a brief overview like just a minute ago about like the portfolio tracking, but like I said, you can also trade there if you want to. With your mobile phone. It's always nice to kind of have access if you have to, like, let's say you're a trader, like an altcoin trader, and a friend sends you like a DM or whatever, tells you, okay, this is the new shit, gotta buy this. If you're ever in that position, you want to have like access. So pretty nice way to do it. I don't recommend trading on your mobile phone in general, but like in those kind of instances, it's pretty nice. So if you want to check that out, check it out. The links are in the description. And yeah, thank you guys for coming by. Always appreciate chatting with you, and even more so when like the charts look like this. Pretty exciting stuff. Hilarious dump, but I mean, at least like it looks like it's finding somewhat of a floor here. Gonna have to see if that maintains. And yeah, we'll see each other on Friday, probably. I don't know what we're gonna do yet, but either it's gonna be a podcast or whatever. And if the market moves heavily between now and like Monday, I might do like a stream, even though like I'm not gonna be around on the weekend too much. But yeah, if it moves a lot, maybe I'll make some time stream just without a schedule or whatever. If not, Monday is the next stream on Weekly Open, and then Wednesday the next stream as usual. So yeah, thanks for coming by. See you. Bye bye.